Hey guys, what's happening? This is Forgo Nation. Today, I thought we'd talk a little bit about critical rate and critical damage. So if you look in here, guys, you see some of these stats here, crit rate and crit damage. You know, what are they? So critical rate, you guys, is how often you deal damage, or the probability of dealing damage. Crit hit, which you don't see here, guys, but a crit hit is just a term that we use in gaming, and it means landing a successful attack. So whenever people say crit hit, like we say you're crit hitting, that means you're landing a successful attack. And critical damage is how much your damage is multiplied by. So for example, for example, you look at my page right here, I have 58.86% crit rate and I have 181.4% critical damage. What you would do is you would multiply those two and it would equal the amount of damage that you're getting, which equals about 1.07 normalized damage when you're crit hitting. So when you're landing successful attacks, you're getting that much damage. So like what you're trying to do, guys, is you're trying to find the right ratio between crit rate and crit damage to achieve the most damage. Now when you look at like the most crit rate, the maximum crit rate is 75%, the max critical damage is 200%. The ratio there is 3 to 8. So a lot of players seem to think the 3 to 8 ratio is the best. I've seen some players say 1 to 2 ratio is the best. I've seen some players say that it just depends on if you have high critical damage with your base stats before you equip any Uru, or if you have high critical rate with your base stats not equipping Uru. It can get really complex, you guys. Most people, what they do is they just max out their critical damage first and then they go with their crit rate. I can tell you for sure, if you have guaranteed, well, if my phone will work, if we have guaranteed critical rates in their passives, or they're getting it from their from a leadership, or they're getting it from another passive, like for example, Wolverine here has an increased guaranteed critical rate of 50%. When you see characters that have that, you should always max out their critical damage first. Any character that has a guaranteed critical rate, whether they're getting it from their passive, from a leadership, from whatever source, you should always give them critical damage first. Just like Gambit here, he has an increased guaranteed critical rate. Now, if they don't, I still would recommend the same thing, guys. Most players agree that you should, but it's arguable. Something else to always keep in mind with this is crit rate is really funny. Critical damage, guys, always remains the same. No matter what, you're always going to have the same critical damage, always. But your crit rate fluctuates. So like for example, it depends on the level of the character that you're facing. Like for example, if you're facing, say you're a tier 2 and you have 50% crit rate, and you're fighting another tier 2 with 50% crit rate in PvP. Both of your crit rates will drop in half. That means they'll be cut to 25%. When you're facing a character of the same level, or an opponent of the same level, your crit rate gets cut in half. Now if you have guaranteed critical rate, you'll still keep that. So it can be a little confusing. And something else, if you have guaranteed critical rate, don't, like for example, guys, here, let me show you something. Now if my phone will work, come on now. Come on now. Come on. My phone is giving me fits. Okay, finally. Where was I? Okay. So like for example, guys, you got Coulson here. And in his tier 2 passive, he increases guaranteed critical rate by 20%. Okay. So if you try mixing him with someone like Wolverine, who also has that tier 2 passive, they won't stack on each other, you guys. You're not going to get both of those critical rates. So whenever you have a hero that has guaranteed critical rate, don't give them Coulson. You'll still get the 45% damage dealt to supervillains from Coulson, but you're not going to get his crit rate buff. So that's something to always remember. It's like when you're fighting the Beast, the ABX Beast. The Beast is a level 100. So if I take a level 70 character against the Beast, my crit rate's going to be cut big time. We're going to be losing a lot of crit rate. If you have guaranteed critical rate, then you're going to keep that amount of critical rate. It gets really confusing. So what we're going to do, you guys, is we're going to run a test. Now right now, if you take 58.86% multiplied times 181.46%, that would equal 1.06 normalized damage. So what we're going to do is we're going to run Quicksilver into ABX. We're going to do 2 runs. One run with this ratio that we got going on right here. And then we're going to go into, well, if my phone would work, there we go. Then we're going to go into this blue text here that says crit rate, and I'm going to change that to critical damage, and we're going to have a different ratio. And what we're going to see is, and we'll figure out that normalized damage then when I change the settings. And then we're going to run an ABX run with that setting. So let's rock and roll. So this will be the run with the settings I just showed you guys, with the lower critical damage and higher critical rate. And we're just going to try to keep that proc on that 4. We want to run as close as the same run as I can for both of these runs to make it a fair comparison. Now there's going to be some variables, guys. Sometimes the proc might come a little late. Maybe I'll miss the proc, but right now we're doing pretty good. We're hitting the proc on the 4. It came a little late that time, but right there, see, it just hit, came a little late. So we'll see what happens in the next round. But there's always these little variables that you have to take into account. And by the way, guys, what I did was I ran 3 runs with this crit rate, critical damage ratio, and then I ran 3 runs with the other crit rate, critical damage ratio. And I took the highest number from both of the runs, and that's what I'm using in this comparison for you guys. So just know that I tried getting the most I could from each of the ratios that I chose to use. But we're doing pretty good. He's actually putting up some pretty good numbers with this setup. I'm liking it. I'm liking it. Doing real good. I mean, we already hit 800,000, and we're not even quite halfway there. So
It's so weird.
So right now, 880,000 halfway. And that was almost a perfect run up until that point, pretty much. I mean, I hit the proc every time. Sometimes it came a little late, but that's something to keep in mind. But we're going to run the full 3 minutes because I did a previous video where I just did like a minute. And I honestly, a subscriber let me know that, hey, that's not really fair. You really should give a full 3 minutes. And I was like, you know what? I agree. So we're going to do the full 3 minutes and see what they get as far as their score. And see if there really is much of a difference. Now I'm really just showing you guys this for fun, this comparison, and just a way for you to test your own characters and builds. But he's doing really great so far. I chose Quicksilver, by the way, because he doesn't have any guaranteed critical rate, and his passives are nothing. That would, because if he did, it would skew the numbers. It would change everything. So I want to make it fair as we can. Because what we're doing is we're just comparing these ratios from critical rate to critical damage. What's the best ratio to run with? I don't know. There's so many. Man, there are so many different ratios you could run. It's not even funny. We could be here all day doing this. So I'm just doing just 2 of them to give you guys an idea. So here we go. We're gonna hit 1.8. Not quite. Okay, so now we're going to change this blue stat to critical damage. So let's change this sucker to critical damage. Here we go. Awesome. Didn't cost me a lot of gold. Good deal. Now let's take a look at how much crit rate and critical damage I have. So as you guys can see, it changed it quite a bit. We went from having 58% critical rate to 45% critical rate. And from 181% critical damage to almost max critical damage. So now we have a completely different ratio. And if you take 45.15% times 199.95%, you get 0.09 normalized damage. Now, so this setting has 0.09 normalized damage, and the other ratio that we just ran in ABX had a 1.06, 1.07 normalized damage. So, in all honesty, this ratio that we have right now should have a lesser score than the one we had before. So let's find out. Something else that affects your ABX score is whether or not a meteor hits you as well. Up in the top right hand corner, you guys see that little blue meter that's going up? It says meteor evasion points. Whenever that's max, you're going to be able to, whenever that's completely blue, you'll be able to do more damage. And if you keep that thing up all the time, if it constantly stays blue and you never get hit by meteors, you're going to be able to do more damage. Now in the last run, when I had less critical damage and more crit rate, the meteor hit me one time, so we're going to see if it even hits me this time at all. Because that will make a difference in your score. That's something else to keep in mind. So, you know, late procs, early procs, whether or not the meteor bar's up. I mean, there's a lot of variables in this. So you got to take a little bit of it with a grain of salt. You know, what I'm doing here is not absolute. It's just testing. But we're putting up some good scores still. So far that meteor bar's stayed up. We haven't got hit yet. Looks like the proc's staying where it should. Yeah, right there was real good. By the way, something else about Quicksilver. It's really not that difficult to keep that meteor bar up. He's in iframe pretty much the whole time. And I think right now the proc came a little late. Sometimes it's hard to tell with CTPs because you always see that countdown. In the top left hand corner in the green, you always see that countdown. 5, 4, 3. And with a regular obelisk, you know, one that isn't a CTP, as soon as you proc another skill, your damage proc is canceled. But with a CTP, it isn't. So sometimes it's difficult to know if I'm hitting the proc or not. Like right there, I hit the proc for sure. But the meteor bar staying up the whole time so far, that will make a difference, you guys. That will make a difference. We're doing good. I haven't got hit yet. This is actually a really good run. By the way, guys, if you notice, I'm using Valkyrie, and the reason is because, like I said before, I use Quicksilver because he has no guaranteed crit rate. That'll skew the numbers. And I'm using Valkyrie because she doesn't give any guaranteed critical rate either. Coulson does, and that's why I'm not using him. We don't want to skew the numbers. We want to just compare these ratios that we're running. If you put guaranteed critical rate in there, it can skew the numbers a bit. So yeah, oh yeah. Alright, nice. It's a pretty good score. So in conclusion, you guys, when we ran the 1-to-3 ratio, Quicksilver got almost 1.8 million. When we ran the 1.4 ratio, he got 1.85 million. Now something to think about, guys. In that 1.3 million run, the meteor hit me one time and the procs seemed to be coming a little late at times. Whereas with the 1-4 ratio, the procs seem to be coming near the beginning of the 4th skill, which is what you want, and the meteor never hit me. So in all honesty, guys, I mean, just from this, comparing the 1-to-3 ratio and the 1-to-4 ratio, I really think the 1-to-3 ratio is actually better. But in order to simplify things, I still would recommend people just maxing out their critical damage first, because when you're trying to figure out normalized damage and you're trying to figure out ratios, it can get very extensive. It can also be very costly. So I would still recommend putting your critical damage first, but you guys do what you want with your own accounts. Let me know what you think of my assessment of this. If I'm right, if I'm wrong, why am I right, why am I wrong? And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Y'all take care and have a good one.